All right, y'all. Welcome back to the show. It's Antiwar Radio on the Liberty Radio Network. First full week of the new 3-hour show here. You can stream from LRN.FM. Our next guest on the show today is Lew Rockwell. He's the president of the Ludwig von Mises Institute and, of course, keeps the great website and blog and radio show at LewRockwell.com. That's L-E-W, Rockwell.com. Welcome back to the show, Lew, or I guess welcome to the show, Lew, for this new show.
Great to be with you again. And by the way, congratulations on your third hour.
Thank you very much, sir.
I hope that Limbaugh is looking in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. If only I could pick one side over the other, I might be all right, you know?
Well, it's trouble in the U.S. media to be truthful.
Yeah, apparently
and not
so.
to be a partisan of one criminal group or the other criminal group.
Oh, come on, I can't think of any examples of that.
Well, you're supposed to be for the Bonanno family or the other mafia family.
The Gambinis.
But you can't have problems with the mafia. That's actually a terrible thing to say, since the mafia, of course, is a far better organization than the U.S. government.
Yeah, they can accomplish their goals with the same methods and not as good PR. So all right, well. I got to tell you, Lew, I saw you pick this up on your blog, too. I was hoping for some wisdom along this account. I talked with this guy, Nick Bauman, from Mother Jones yesterday, and I just talked with other Scott Horton, heroic anti-torture human rights lawyer from Harper's Magazine. And it turns out, apparently, George Bush and them did a bunch of torture experiments in order to define where the threshold of too much torture is, the pain equivalent to organ failure or death, so that then they could write memos saying that any torture up to the limit of the same pain as organ failure or death is perfectly legal. And I just wonder what in the hell has happened to us. Was it always this way, or are we just the American adults have all just shrugged their shoulders in unison and decided whatever, just let them do whatever they want now?
Well, I think that there's always been torture. Certainly in world history, virtually every regime is engaged in torture. I don't think it was particularly widespread in the U.S., but certainly since World War II, maybe since World War I, and especially with the Bush administration and its continuation in the Obama administration, we have torture. I think it's the other Scott Horton has pointed out that it's not a good thing if torture is a career path within the regime. I mean, bad enough. Regular politicians are bad enough, but people who actually like torturing other people, they're not a good bunch. And so certainly we've had this vast increase in torture, and as you say, the very disturbing seems to be Americans either ignoring it or approving of this. They watch various Fox so-called news shows, or they watch various Fox allegedly fictional shows and about the glories of torture and the glories of killing people who oppose the U.S. regime, and a lot of people seem to cheer. Yet all good things happen with minorities. Minorities achieve everything. Minorities pretty much achieve everything for evil too. So we don't actually have to have the majority of people. And people like you are helping wake up the good people in this country to exactly the kinds of horrors that are going on. Maybe because I used to edit a medical journal many years ago, it especially bothers me that doctors are involved in this. They're supposed to take the Hippocratic Oath, which, the first line of, which is first, do no harm. And so the fact that they've got the CIA has apparently a whole lot of contract physicians who guide the torture. Maybe they're not doing the actual torture, but as you say, they're telling the torturers, go up to this point, but we don't actually want to kill the guy. Maybe they want to kill him later, but they don't want to kill him while the Inquisition is going on. So the whole thing is sickening. It's useful for us to know it because it's a peek into the kinds of people in power in Washington. And these are, the people who want the total police state. They want to control every bit of economic activity. They want to control and abolish your privacy, financial and otherwise. And they want to just control us, humiliate us. They love it. If you like the U.S. airports, that's what they want to make all of society.
Huh. Okay. Well, that's, I think I'll have a nightmare about that, starting right now. Well, look, here's my problem, I guess, is that And maybe this is a character flaw of mine, that I spend too much time in the past instead of just, plotting my own life out for the future. And, it has all kinds of different consequences. But one of the things is that I just remember too well being a child in the 1980s. I turned, 10 in 86, right? That was my era there. So, and what I learned was that the USSR is bad. And the reason why is because they torture people and they raid houses and take people away in the middle of the night. And they tell everyone what to do. But our way is that you're free. And the only time you can get in trouble with the government here is if you do something wrong to somebody. Otherwise, we got eagles and red, white, and blue and all the things that we believe, and let's add the Bill of Rights in there. And so it's... on a couple levels, I got the whole, dichotomy between the way I was told and the way things really are. But I also have the thing where, wait a minute, if this was my, inculcation into the American civic religion as a 10-year-old, then wasn't it everybody else's? And why do you need any minority of people to be outraged about torture, to be outraged about prison without trial, Lou? This is supposed to be what we all assent to, at the very least, that you get a fair trial before you go to prison.
Scott, most of the literature that was promoted during Cold War days by the regime is not worth looking at. But Alexander Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago, which is available in paperback, there are 3 volumes, although I especially would recommend the first volume, about what it was like under Stalin in the camps, is very, very much worth reading. It's full of interesting parallels. For one thing, the Soviets cared nothing about, they might jail them, but they cared really nothing about actual criminals. In fact, they were the ones they always made the trustees, they got the most food, the privileges within the camps, because, of course, they were not seen as attacking the regime by raping, murdering, robbing, and so forth. But the political criminals, so-called, the people who had, as in Solzhenitsyn's case, told a joke about Stalin, for which he was sent to the camps for many, many years, and we in this country, you can be put in jail for telling a joke about the president. I mean, there was a case of a man in Colorado who told a joke when Bush was in town. This is in Denver, at a bar, and I don't know what the joke consisted of, but the punchline is something to do with a burning bush, making a reference to the Old Testament burning bush and the then current president. He was arrested, and I've never been able to find out what happened to him, but he was taken off, and he told a politically incorrect joke. But this Gulag Archipelago book, I mean, the way the regime thought, the way they acted, the way the prisoners thought, what they had wished maybe they'd done before they got arrested, and so forth. Very, very alarming, fascinating, great literature, and I'm afraid it has certain parallels to what's going on in this country.
Yeah. In 1984, he just couldn't see quite as far as he needed, old Orwell. All right, y'all, we're talking with Lew Rockwell. We'll be right back. Antiwar Radio on the Liberty Radio Network. All right, y'all, welcome back to the show. Antiwar Radio on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM. We're talking with Lew Rockwell, president of the Ludwig von Mises Institute and keeper of LewRockwell.com and LewRockwell.com/blog, I should not neglect to mention. And, basically we're talking about how bummed out I am at how terrible all the news is and the American people's reaction to it as well. Help me out here on this side of the break. Lou, give me the case for libertarian hope, because I'm about out.
Well, I think, we were talking most recently about, not on air, about Ron Paul. I think Ron Paul represents a case for libertarian hope. Not so much through electoral politics. There's only ever been one Ron Paul so far as I can tell in American history, and my guess is there only will be one Ron Paul. But the example that he's set, and the sorts of ideals that he's personified and has taught for more than 3 decades have had a vast effect. I mean, I see it among young people, just a huge amount of waking up to the war and peace issue, to the sound money issue, to the police state issue. I mean, Ron Paul, it doesn't get listened to much in Washington when he discusses the fact that Obama claims the right to assassinate anybody anywhere in the world, including American citizens, if he classifies them as bad guys. But when Ron Paul talks about that kind of thing, young people hear him and young people care. So I think I just think there's a whole lot more knowledge. I think, It's all, of course, many, many great men and women, whether we look back at Ludwig von Mises or Murray Rothbard or Ayn Rand or Isabel Patterson, Henry Hazlitt, just many, many great men and women who fought for liberty and had a huge influence, and it's a growing influence. So even though in the media, which is, of course, pure evil, I mean the official media, they're just typically lying and propagandizing for the regime. In single thing they say, they're twisting the truth, and they're just a bunch of criminals. They're like Pravda, although probably there was more truth in Pravda than there is in the American official media. So you can't believe the government, you can't believe the official media, but below our rulers and all the bureaucrats and all the bad guys or the parasites, there's a lot of good stuff going on among regular Americans. And you're helping, by the way.
Well, thanks. I like to believe that's true, although I'm not sure the numbers really verify that. But, yeah, whatever. We all do what we can. And, the first time I ever met Ron, and this was the discussion off the air there that you were just referring to. The first time I met Ron was at the Libertarian Party convention in 2004, of all places. And it was the first time I ever got to interview him, and I just put a tape recorder down on the table and talked with him. And my last question was actually Karen Katowski's question, and that was, what's the case for libertarian hope if there's only one Ron Paul and only ever will be, you know? And what he said was, hey, look, man, a few years ago, we didn't think the Soviet Union was about to cease to exist. We thought it would exist throughout our lifetimes. Millions of people were set free. And, never mind the fact that the American government has made them all yearn for the old Soviet days now. That was a good thing, whether they realize it or not at this point. And he said, we didn't predict that, and so our job is not to predict bad for the future. It's to focus on the present and just keep teaching people about liberty, and you got to just be happy with that. And really, I guess that's the best thing to do, is just hope for, those individual conversions rather than, well, like, for example, I'm sorry I'm just complaining at you now here, but I've debunked the lies about the Iranian nuclear program on my show virtually every day for 3 years straight. And my effect on the conversation in the country about that nuclear program is less than zero. It's nothing. And so, I've taught people, individuals, the truth about it. But as far as whether it's made any difference in the larger sense, who could know? I guess I can have faith in ripples and ponds and whatever if I want, but I don't see the evidence for it,
Well, it's absolutely true that, that lie, just as like the lie about the Iraqi WMDs, seems to go unchallenged. Part of the reason is the people telling the lie, they know it's a lie. I mean, the Christian right types and all those who want to go to war against Iran, murder people in Iran by the hundreds of thousands, maybe more, maybe even use nuclear weapons against Iran, a country which is, of course, in hundreds of years since they attacked anybody else, unlike the U.S. and its various allies. But I don't know. I mean, I think there's progress being made, but I'll agree with you on that particular issue. It's very, very tough, and of course the whole media is constantly lying about it. And I'd like to have somebody explain to me what exactly is the problem if Iran has a nuclear weapon. Now, I don't believe any country ought to have nuclear weapons, whether it's the U.S. or Britain or Russia or China or Israel or Pakistan or India or any of the rest of them, because these are all, as Murray Rothbard argued, fundamentally immoral weapons designed to kill civilians. So it's actually not permissible from a moral standpoint to have them, let alone to use them. And, of course, the U.S., the only government ever to use them. Yeah. But let's say that Iran got some primitive atomic weapon. What would that actually mean? It would mean, exactly as with Korea, it's tougher to attack them. And I never get over the fact that it's considered a fundamental evil for any country to defend themselves against the U.S.
Right, that's what a threat is. It's the ability to possibly resist at all.
Well, they were describing as an act of terrorism the fact that Iran bought from Russia a year and a half ago anti-aircraft guns. Well, anti-aircraft guns have a very short range. It's a purely defensive weapon. But to defend yourself against the empire, it's a sin, and so you're supposed to be crushed. But in some sense, there are people, by the way, who argue every country ought to have a nuclear weapon. It would be the end of war, at least mass war. So I don't know whether I agree with that. In fact, I don't agree with it, but I sort of see it. I sort of see the point, and I can understand why some people in Iran want to have an atomic weapon to defend themselves. It actually, back in old Cold War days, they used to talk about these things were just defensive, and there'd be because they would be mutually assured destruction, that there never would be a war. And indeed, there, thank goodness, never has been a war, hot war between the U.S. and Russia yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but
there have been at least 20 very close calls.
And of course, as with any demonized people, we're never shown any pictures of the Iranians. We know nothing about their cities, their culture, their people, their homes, nothing about them. Their businesses, their universities. It's all kept carefully hidden, so much the easier to incinerate them.
Right. That's such an important point, because the people of Iran end up being reduced to pretty much an inaccurate blob of a shape on a map in people's minds, rather than, land where people are standing, and it seems flat from there and all that, just like here, just like where you are.
Well, this has been a great civilized people for, 5,000 years? I mean, it's, but from the typical person who's believing U.S. government propaganda, there are a bunch of, crazy mullahs wanting to kill everybody, and they want to commit suicide, and all the same stuff they used to say about China back in Korean War days. They always demonize the opponents of the U.S. government are never human. They're always subhuman. They're the undermen, and therefore, of course, they should be killed, and all their women and children, too, because they might grow up to be terrorists as well.
Yeah, nits make lice. In fact, that kind of brings me back to one of my original points here, was when I was a kid, everybody felt bad about what happened to the Red Indians of America. And I wonder now whether maybe, genocide is back in style. Screw it. I'm not sure. My thumb is not on the pulse of America at this point, Lou. I don't even know. Maybe Custer's a hero after all.
Well, I don't know. I mean, certainly back in the day when that was happening, it seemed like most people approved of it, and they approved of what General Sherman referred to as the final solution to the Indian question. This is typically thought of as a Hitler quote in talking about the Jewish people, but it isn't. It was actually an anti-Indian quote from 19th century America.
Yeah, well, they also called it the Indiana procedure when they tied a woman down and cut her ovaries out, too.
Well, that's our government.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank God there's the Ludwig von Mises Institute. I'll tell you what, everybody, that's Mises.org, LewRockwell.com. Thank you so much for your time on the show, Lou. I really appreciate it a lot.
Scott, great to be with you.